Good evening, I'm Klaudia Czerwińska and you're watching World News Tonight live from Warsaw. Make a deal or we are out. U.S. President Donald Trump warned his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelenskyy at a meeting on the minerals agreement held in the Oval Office at the White House. In a heated discussion between Zelenskyy, Trump and U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, Trump called Zelenskyy disrespectful and said he is gambling with World War III.
I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States, and your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't have. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's backed you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
According to the latest information we received, President Zelenskyy left the Oval Office without the deal being signed. He can come back when he is ready for peace, U.S. President Donald Trump wrote on Truth Social following his White House clash with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on Friday.
You have to be thankful. You don't have the cards.
I have determined that President Zelenskyy is not ready for peace if America is involved because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage, I want peace, the Post read. Trump went on to say that Zelenskyy disrespected the United States of America in its, quote, cherished Oval Office where the meeting took place. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas will be asked to assess what further security guarantees the bloc can provide Ukraine as part of ceasefire negotiations with Russia. That's if European leaders approve the idea of an extraordinary summit centered on defense in Brussels next week, leaked documents reveal. EU correspondent Angela Skujins has more from the Belgian capital.
European leaders next week will discuss inviting the European High Representative Kaja Kallas to investigate what security guarantees the EU can offer Ukraine as part of ongoing ceasefire negotiations with Russia. This is according to a leaked European Council summit agenda that TVP has acquired today. According to that agenda, Ukrainian defence as well as overall European security sit at the top of that docket, with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy expected to be in Brussels on March the 6th for those high-level talks. But in regards to security guarantees, there were questions today here in the Belgian capital regarding whether the EU can send peacekeeping troops and whether this is a competency of the European Union. Here is what a spokesperson had to say this afternoon regarding that matter.
This is the competence of the member states, and it is not for us to make proposals in this regard. We do know that Ukraine needs more ammunition, stronger air defense, and more support for its own defense industry. We must give Ukraine what it needs to win this war. That's clear, and this is our priority today.
What we already know is that the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has ruled out sending Polish troops to Ukraine, so we'll wait and see what comes out of these discussions next week. But European security and defence is linked to Ukrainian peace. That is why the European Union is pushing for a long and just lasting peace there. We know that defence manufacturing as well as production needs to be ramped up. This is also expected to be talked about next week, as well as ways of accelerating the EU loosening up its fiscal rules so that member states can spend more on shoring up their military capabilities. But we'll wait and see regarding the formal outcomes of those special talks. Angela Skujins from Brussels for TVP World.
In Bucharest, a vote of no confidence against the current Romanian government of Marcel Ciolaku was held on Friday. The vote failed, but nonetheless was a culmination of what has already been a very turbulent week in Romania. Our reporter Pavel Trzaskowski has more.
This has been a roller coaster week in Romania. First, the detainment of presidential candidate Călin Georgescu, followed by the release of the Tate brothers, and then a motion of censure for the government.
So it's a very, let's say, entertaining telenovela from those from the outside, but it's a very sad reality and storytelling for the ones on the inside.
The last installment of political turmoil in Romania concerned a no-confidence vote for Marcel Ciolaku's government. Initiated by the right-wing parties, it failed, but sought to undermine support for the ruling coalition ahead of presidential elections that will be held in May.
Let me explain to you the reasons why you have to leave. You made a mockery of the organization of all the elections in 2024.
The first round of 2024 presidential elections was declared void by the country's constitutional court. The unexpected and controversial winner of this ballot, Călin Georgescu, who is now leading the polls ahead of a rerun, was detained and accused of forming an organization aiming to undermine the democratic order and of providing false information about his presidential campaign financing. After 4 hours of questioning, Georgescu was eventually released. It may again be up to the Constitutional Court to decide whether he'll be allowed to run. However,
Romania cares a lot about the U.S. and unfortunately for our current mainstream political class, several elements within the ruling conservative class in the U.S. seem to be favoring a candidacy of Mr. Georgescu.
This U.S. preference for an alternative political class in Romania was explicitly pronounced during the Munich Security Conference.
Now we're at the point, of course, that the situation has gotten so bad that this December, Romania straight up canceled the results of a presidential election based on the flimsy suspicions of an intelligence agency and enormous pressure from its continental neighbors.
But it now seems that pressure from Bucharest's partner across the Atlantic convinced the government to lift a ban on travel for the Tate brothers, an influencer duo accused of human trafficking and forming an organized criminal group.
We do know that there has been pressure placed on the Romanians, that they have been coerced into doing this. The Trump administration is quite shocking that they would do so, but equally Romania should be ashamed and embarrassed for having kowtowed to Trump's bullying.
And all this happens within the alliance. Romania has been a NATO country since 2004. It hosts the U.S. ballistic missile defense system and is currently developing its military airbase in Constanta, which is set to become the largest NATO military base in Europe by 2040. Pavel Trzaskowski for TVP World.
With only one submarine at its disposal, Poland is now undergoing searches for a supplier for its planned new fleet of underwater warships. This is of crucial importance amid a spate of Russian sabotage incidents in the Baltic Sea. Piotr Miszczuk has the story.
This is ORP Orzeł, a Polish submarine that entered service in 1986. But proximity to Russia has driven Poland to hatch a plan to buy 3 new undersea vessels. Though submarines are not meant to guard undersea infrastructure, they can be effective in thwarting a potential Russian sabotage, according to experts.
The best countermeasure to a submarine's activity is another submarine. If these submarines that we buy are modern submarines, well, then we actually have a good chance to block the Baltic, not only on the water, because we have already done that by buying coastal missiles, but also underwater, because Russian submarines are inferior to all the submarines that are offered to us.
Experts say the first new submarine will become part of the Polish fleet in 5 to 6 years. The purchase will be carried out by the Polish Arms Agency, but the process is not in their hands at the moment.
As you can see, a lot is happening in the public space. A lot is happening at a level higher than the agency is located. That is, I am talking here about the political level.
Polish top officials are holding talks with representatives of companies from 6 countries which submitted their bids. According to media reports, Italy, Germany and Sweden seem to be the frontrunners in the contract race, which is beyond a business agreement. For Swedish company Saab, the deal is also vital for their country.
We are looking for this procurement as Team Sweden. What we mean is the Swedish government, together with the different authorities, of course, and Saab. How do we create a strategic partnership with the country of Poland? So it's a broader approach than just discussing on the transaction of a platform or a number of platforms, which are the submarines.
But they will be very expensive for Poland.
As for the cost, on average the price of such a submarine is approximately $600 million. It means that, for example, if we didn't buy 100 Apache helicopters, but 75, we would have the submarines for free. On the other hand, as I said, however, the most important thing for many soldiers and for many people in uniform is to buy things that can be shown at the parade. Submarines simply can't be shown at the parade.
But this will not be the only line of defense against a potential Russian sabotage. Some EU-wide measures were announced last week.
First, the creation of an EU cable vessel reserve to increase the EU's capacity to repair damaged cables. Second, we will also support the establishment of strategic reserves for the main cable spare parts. And third, we will enhance also our cooperation with NATO.
In the last 15 months, the Baltic Sea saw 11 acts of sabotage. Reporting for TVP World, I'm Piotr Miszczuk.
We will meet again next week. That was the message from party officials in Germany as high-stakes coalition talks get underway. Representatives from the conservative CDU and CSU bloc met with the Social Democrats for almost 5 hours today as they look to freeze the far right out of power. Our chief political correspondent, Aaron Damman, reports.
As Germans revel in Carnival season, likely German Chancellor Friedrich Merz is desperate to find a coalition government to lead.
Dear friends, the world out there is not waiting for us, nor is it waiting for lengthy coalition talks and negotiations. We must now quickly regain our ability to act.
That was CDU leader Merz on election night, well aware of the tall task at hand. Well aware, too, of the rise of the far right, with the AfD clinching around 20% of the national vote. In fact, the only mathematical possibility to form a government without the AfD is to join forces with the third-placed Social Democrats, the same party of current Chancellor Olaf Scholz. But the SPD, whose negotiations are being led by party chair and co-leader Lars Klingbeil, maintains it will not be easily charmed.
Whether a government is formed, whether the SPD joins a government, is not certain. These are decisions that will be made in the coming weeks and months. However, I made it very clear, the ball is first in Friedrich Merz's court.
That ball has now been played, with the Bundestag playing host to the first exploratory talks between the CDU and CSU bloc and the SPD on Friday.
Trust and reliability must be put at the forefront. We must draw lessons from this failed government. Permanent disputes not only damage those involved, but they also damage democracy.
Ahead of the negotiations, defence spending was reportedly high on the agenda, with Merz pushing for a €200 billion package as part of the outgoing parliament, before new MPs even take their seats. And it's fair to say all of the conversations behind closed doors come at a critical time.
This is the last shot that Germany's Democrats have to get Germany back to growth and back to a dynamic development. And they can't miss that chance.
So can voters expect a government soon?
There is no time to lose. I would say the goal that is generally accepted is to have a government by Easter. That means by April. I have the impression that there is a slight chance that by the end of March we will have a government.
In the meantime, Germans are dancing away the political drama before a new political era awaits.
Polish far-right pro-Russian presidential candidate Sławomir Mencen has organized a provocation in Ukraine just days after the third anniversary of the Russian invasion. Mencen has been systematically fueling anti-Ukrainian sentiments in Poland as he attempts to overtake conservative Karol Nawrocki for second place in the polls. Kazimierz Łysiak has this report.
Sławomir Mencen, the Polish presidential candidate of the far-right Confederation Party, went to Lviv just 2 days after the third anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. While there, he recorded the following video clip.
We are at the Stepan Bandera monument in Lviv. He was a terrorist who was sentenced to death by the court of the Polish Second Republic for mass murders of Poles.
Stepan Bandera was indeed a Ukrainian nationalist responsible for the deaths of thousands of Poles during the Second World War. But it's the context of the video which is the main cause of controversy.
We know that after this video, Russian media used this in their propaganda, even portraying Mr. Mencen as a hero of sorts. In the context of the ongoing invasion, this is highly irresponsible.
Mencen's provocative video quickly got the attention of Ukrainian officials, including the mayor of Lviv and the spokesperson for the foreign ministry.
Pro-Russian politician with a Polish passport Sławomir Mencen should show courage and record a video near the Donetsk front line. We need to check whether he is even allowed to enter Ukraine. Ukraine appeals to Polish politicians to refrain from using issues related to Ukraine in their domestic campaign. Such unfriendly steps are contrary to the spirit of the strategic partnership between Ukraine and Poland.
Experts point out that Sławomir Mencen is using anti-Ukrainian sentiments in his campaign for the May presidential election in Poland.
He's anti-Ukrainian all the time. Now he just has shown that he's even more anti-Ukrainian, but of course it is dangerous because it shows that he's also pro-Russian.
On Friday, for the first time since the campaign kicked off, one opinion poll for a conservative media outlet put Mencen in second place with almost 19%. Rafał Trzaskowski, the mayor of Warsaw and a member of the ruling center-liberal coalition, is still leading the poll with more than 33% of the vote. The conservative candidate Karol Nawrocki, representing the biggest opposition party, Law and Justice, is seen falling behind with 16.5%. Other surveys still put Nawrocki ahead of Mencen, but as the pro-Russian candidate is slowly catching up with right-wing Nawrocki, the latter is also jumping on the anti-Ukraine bandwagon.
Today, I do not see Ukraine in any structure, neither in the European Union nor in NATO, until such important civilizational issues for Poles are resolved.
The ruling coalition is in turn fully supporting Ukraine in its defense against Russia, while also advancing talks on joint exhumations of historical Polish victims. Ukraine is an important topic for Polish voters as Poland is directly bordering the war zone. The first round of the presidential election will take place on May 18th. Kazimierz Łysiak, TVP World.
Poland and Japan have signed a strategic partnership agreement. Warsaw and Tokyo want to expand cooperation on defense and infrastructure. The document was signed during the Polish foreign minister's visit to Japan. Our reporter Karolina Stoltzman explores what could come out of this cooperation.
Despite the distance, there's a lot Poland and Japan have in common.
Poland has provided humanitarian, financial, military assistance to Ukraine. Japan has been very generous in financial assistance to Ukraine, which is very much needed.
We have a common challenge called Ukraine, and also in our region, maybe growing militaristic activities by China. We have seen that China is an enabler for Russia to keep fighting.
But Warsaw and Tokyo could also share opportunities.
If somehow some stability in Ukraine comes, of course, reconstruction is another opportunity for Poland and Japan to work together.
Poland, which is building up its first nuclear power plant, proves an attractive partner for Japan.
I really do hope Poland could be a wonderful field to work together on the nuclear area.
But experts believe possible civil nuclear cooperation remains presumptive.
Sharing nuclear technology by Japan with such country as Poland or any other country in the eastern flank is now a discussion about hypotheticals.
Whether achieved with the help of Japan or NATO, according to experts, Poland's nuclear safety desperately needs an update.
But it would be hugely important for NATO to deploy nuclear weapons to not only to these countries where they are located now, but only to other countries of the NATO eastern flank particularly, because it's long past time for NATO to adjust its nuclear posture.
Warsaw and Tokyo will cooperate on defense matters, as the countries agreed to discuss the participation of Japan's self-defense forces and the Polish armed forces in multilateral military exercises.
Now let's watch how the meeting in the Oval Office developed into a full-blown war of words between President Trump, Vice President Vance, and President Zelenskyy. The press conference scheduled for later was cancelled and no deal was signed. Afterwards, we have a special edition of Face to Face with Adam Yasser and TVP World's Editor-in-Chief Michał Broniatowski, so stay with us. And so this marks the end of World News Tonight. Thank you so much for joining, and please stay here on TVP World for more in just a moment.